Alpha Private Limited manufactures and distributes products from over 10 international pharmaceutical and healthcare companies. Mr. Nataraj is a regional manager of Alpha Private Limited who is in charge of both managing existing clients and acquiring new ones. He also manages a number of sales representatives where one of them is Mr. Bhavan. One day, Mr. Nataraj was contacted by one of the important customers, namely Good Health Hospital. They complained that Mr. Bhavan, who is the sales representative, was ineffective and demanded that he be removed or else they would not give them any business.
Mr. Nataraj has three thoughts on this matter, which are: Mr. Nataraj found that the real reason was personal differences between the two parties, which are Mr. Bhavan and hospital superintendent. The record of Mr. Bhavan's work was excellent ever since he worked at the Alpha Private Limited company. Dismissing him or transferring him to a new region will have a negative impact on employee morale. However, losing customer like Good Health Hospital is not an option because they are major customer and can give good business. As a result, the hospital's requirements must be fulfilled.
Mr. Nataraj should try to get Mr. Bhavan and the hospital superintendent together for discussion and try to compromise over the differences. Advantage can resolve the conflict and any misunderstanding between Mr. Bhavan and the hospital superintendent in a professional manner. Disadvantage is a waste of time and may cause an argument between them, and they probably didn't find a perfect way to solve their problem. Alternative 2. Mr. Nataraj should try slow talking and discussing with Mr. Bhavan about the problem and solve it in a best way. Advantage: Mr. Bhavan will feel valued and he will learn from his mistake to work more quality. Disadvantage: Mr. Bhavan will probably feel insecure about his weakness and less motivation.
Alternative number 3. Mr. Bhavan is a loyal and hardworking. Mr. Nataraj needs to keep people like him even if it means losing customers. The advantage is Mr. Bhavan will be motivated to work harder in the future, and the disadvantage is bad reputation will spread among their customers. Alternative number 4. Mr. Nataraj should move Mr. Bhavan to a new and more important project. He will develop new business in the newly formed sub-region, and Good Health Hospital will have no problem with the new sales representative. The advantage is both parties have their own benefits and company will not losing their excellent employee and major customer at the same time. The disadvantage is they are most likely to get another complaint from customer.
And the final solutions is alternative 2. Mr. Nataraj will have slow talk and discussion with Mr. Bhavan about the problem and solve it in the best way. And alternative 4. Mr. Nataraj will move Mr. Bhavan to a new and more important project, develop new business in the newly formed sub-region. Good Health Hospital will have no problem with the new sales representative.
The reasons for choosing these alternatives are these two alternatives should be combined to make a better result. It can also strengthen the relationship between employee and employer, and at the same time, Alpha Private Limited company will not lose their major customer.
Case study number 2. The real problem behind this case is the delayed process of food supplies distribution. It started when the Minister of Education's process of approval has become more cumbersome and lengthier as time passes by. The parties that are involved are Sarah Britton, the Minister of Education in Papua Tuyua, an international NGO based in the UK, and local school officials. The executive committees are the ones who are responsible to make the decision, because Sarah has requested them to instruct her upon the actions that she should do to settle the food supplies distribution matter.
Here's a few alternatives for this problem. First, distribute the food without the approval of Education Minister. The advantage is the food can be distributed right away before the monsoon comes. However, it can cause more complication in the future because it's being delivered without approval. Second alternative, distribute with the approval of Education Minister. The advantage is the process of distribution is valid and safe to be distributed, but it will take a lot more time to wait for the Education Minister's approval. Alternative 3. Sarah should meet the Education Minister directly. They can discuss about the food distribution matter, and Sarah can ask the reason for the delayed process of approval instead of coming up with negative thoughts. However, the Education Minister might not be available at that time or unwilling to welcome Sarah due to too many works to be done.
The solution to these problems are Alternative 2 and 3. Sarah should see the Education Minister as in person to get the actual motive behind the delayed process of food supplies distribution and inquire for the approval immediately because of the food has to be supplied within the next several days before the monsoons come. Also, to avoid complication due to the local school officials' matter of distributing the food supply with or without the Education Minister's approval.